Hi guys, and welcome back to my Patreon tutorials. So for today we're going to do something super cute and we're going to draw a capybara. Now I'm going to use one of my other favourite tools, and that's simply a blue pencil. This pencil is a mechanical one. You can get them mechanical. This is a Bic version, and there's also this Papermate clear point pencil. But it doesn't have to be a mechanical one. You can use a regular old colouring pencil and that will work just fine. So nice and simple, let's get to it. Right then, so I've popped our little reference up here for you. Super cute little animal is the capybara. Now, these guys are actually not very complicated to draw at all. They're just a series of simple shapes. And I'm going to show you my technique for using blue pencil. Again, using blue pencil is no different to using any other pencil. I just prefer the way that it looks. I think blue pencil looks a lot softer than sort of black pencil. I do tend to use a black ballpoint pen because I like the way that looks, but a blue ballpoint pen has also the same effect. And looking much softer than your regular old black ink or black pencil, or your sort of regular HB or 2B, whatever it is that you're using for a drawing pencil. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with an egg shape, and this is going to be his body. So quite simple oval shape. It's as easy as that. There's not many kind of complex shapes when you're drawing a capybara. They're very straightforward. You've got one big oval shape. So I'm pressing very lightly. It's the same as using any pencil really. I'm just pressing super lightly. This type of colored pencil does erase as well. But again, much like the pen, I tend not to erase anything anyway. But yes, got my egg shape. Now ever so slightly forward from the egg shape, and again ever so slightly higher, but not much, because the top of the head doesn't come much higher than the top of the back. So I'm just going to place a circular shape right about there, and that's going to be the head of the animal. And I'm going to also draw his legs in. So I know that there is a structure beneath the skin, but actually not a lot of it can be seen because capybaras are pretty blocky animals. They're pretty strong. You can see some muscle, but that's about it. I'm going to just draw in where the shoulder is. Very light sketch line there. Bring back to the kind of humerus, and then I'm going to draw a vertical line like so. It's a bit too long, but it doesn't matter too much at this point. Now I'm going to look at the other side of the animal. So again, drawing that shoulder blade, bring in that humerus, and sketch in that foreleg. Very simple. The back end of the animal, so we know that the egg shape kind of peaks up here where the top of the spine is. Bring it down, and then you've got where the pelvis is. The femur attaches here, and then we're going to bring in the knee down through a line here, and the short little leg ends there. And we can't see much of the sort of rear side leg anyway, so we're just going to do another little line, another little line. We've kind of got our leg position in now. So next I'm going to start adding in a bit more, kind of a few extra shapes that make those things kind of blend in and make them look more like a capybara. So the top of the head is not quite horizontal, it's angled ever so slightly down. So I'm just going to draw a light sketchy line like so. I'm going to bring in that muzzle. Again, there's a sort of a rough 90-degree angle from the top of the nose down to the mouth. So I'm just going to take that into account and draw a nice sketchy line like so. I'm going to round off that muzzle, or finish off that muscle, and bring it just shy of horizontal. So we have this kind of sort of rectangular shape here. And essentially, the top of the head, we'll bring this line down so we can get to where the cheek of the animal is, or the chin of the animal, and the jawline. Almost vertical there, like so. Just going to place a little circle just towards the top back end of this square shape, this rectangle shape, and that's where the ears will fall later on. Now for the neck, I'm going to bring that line, I'm going to round it off slightly, and connect the top of the head to about where the shoulders sit. And then from the throat to the chest, I'm going to bring that line down and connect the bottom part of this egg shape to the jaw of the animal there. Now for the back, I'm just going to curve this ever so slightly here. Start off with a pretty straight line that kind of goes up directly towards the top of that egg. And I'm going to intersect here and draw another horizontal line. I'm going to start angling this egg shape around about here where the peak of the peak of the spine sits, and then bring it down and curve towards the rump, like so. I'm going to bring in the rear end of this animal, kind of curve it down, knowing that it's going to kind of end up sitting around where the ankle joint is. And the rear end is quite pointy here, just where the pelvis sits towards the back end. I'm also going to flesh out the knee a little bit, so I'm going to round this here, making this oval shape for where the thigh is. And that gives me an idea where I can extend from the belly towards the ankle again as well. Now the belly, it's pretty horizontal, there's not much you can see of it. I'm just going to draw a nice line there, like so. I know that the chest area will connect up to around where the belly is, so give it a kind of rough curved shape like so. Now I know where the shoulder blade sits, it's kind of got this circular shape here. And then you've got a little bit of muscle here from where the forearm or the upper arm is. And for the front leg, I'm just going to bring it down either side of this kind of bone structure here into a little triangle shape, like so. And I'm going to do the same for the front leg as well. Towards where sort of the armpit and the elbow is, give a rough triangle shape, like so. Now for the foot, I'm going to do sort of an inverted triangle because they've got quite splayed toes. So I'm going to say the point of the triangle is here. I'm just going to give it a very flattened triangle like so. And then the same for this foot. Flattened triangle shape. Now the rear foot, I'm going to extend this down from the ankle, either side of this structure of bone that I've put in. Do a sort of flattened rectangle for the rear toes, paying into account where the ground line is from the front feet, like so. Just going to do the same for the rear leg, curve that muscle down towards the ankle, bring in that foot, and sort of a flattened rectangle, paying attention to where the far side of the floor is, like so. Now we have our basic structure of our capybara. So I'm aware that the lower back might be a little bit too low for me, so what I'm going to do is something you won't see me often do. I'm just going to erase that line slightly and bring out that curve a little bit further. And extend that down like that. So we have the basic kind of form of our capybara. Now I'm going to use this line here, knowing where I've placed the ears. And I'm going to place the nose, the nostril. So I'm just going to round off this top of the nose here. I'm going to draw a little circle where the nostril sits. And then I'm going to connect this line, so this nostril line, through to the base of the ear. I know that the eye will fall on this circle towards the back, like so. I'm going to follow this line I've already sketched in. I'm going to bring in the front of the mouth towards the actual lips. Not much is visible, they've got quite small mouths. Bring in that chin like so. Extend it round like that. So there we have our very basic capybara structure. So what I'll do now is I'll zoom in so you can see and start giving this kind of more definition. I'm building up a bit of a background as well so that it kind of pops off the page. So let's go. So when I'm doing the line art, I do like to make sure that my pencil is sharp. Luckily, mechanical pencils, they pretty have a consistent point anyway, so if I need more lead I can just extend that by pressing the end of the pencil, sorry. So I'm just going to keep that nice and sharp, and I'm going to probably kind of go over the same line a few times, but I'm pressing lightly each time I do, building up the pigment that way rather than pressing really harshly. And that's just a technique I use to kind of refine the lines and keep them smooth. I do like to press quite hard if I'm shading in or something, but I'm going to start drawing these lines, but pressing very lightly, just kind of sketching over the top and bringing in that edge. I'm kind of going over the same thing, same area, multiple times using my pencil. So you can see I'm starting to build up that colour, but I'm not pressing very hard at all. And that's mainly because, you know, it saves the lead breaking. You might find, and I find it especially with mechanical pencils, that if you press too hard it can cause the lead to break, which is a bit of a pain, especially when only so much of the lead is actually usable. So as soon as it gets too short, if it breaks up here, you have to get rid of, you know, a fairly large part of the lead, which is not ideal. So just pressing lightly prevents the risk of the lead breaking, and it also keeps your hand from cramping. So it's just something to bear in mind. I'm going to draw in his nose. Again, I'm just kind of lightly pressing to get that shadow in. I'm not pressing too hard. Bring in his eye. Capybara eyes are quite dark. They don't have much, you can't really see much of the whites of the eyes. So I'm just going to shade him in while I'm here. Do a bit of a highlight circle like so. And then lightly add a bit of shadow. So the eye looks kind of glossy. Like that. I'm just going to bring in the chin. So again, pressing very gently and sketching in that line. And what I like to do, and this is perhaps a stylistic choice, is some areas I'll make the pencil quite thick. In some areas the pencil won't be so thick, it'll be quite a thin line. And that just makes the image itself more interesting. So for example, this nose, I'm going to make that quite a thick line. Then it thins down towards the lip area, and again thick around the chin, and it thins out towards here. Capybara are pretty shaggy animals, so you can probably throw in a few of these kind of perpendicular lines to just give an idea for the fur. You know, they're quite coarse, they've got quite a lot of thick, coarse fur. I'm just going to do the ear. So interestingly, I don't know if any of you have hamsters, but capybara are very much related to hamsters. They're in the rodent family, such as, you know, rats and squirrels, guinea pigs, essentially giant guinea pigs. And a random factoid for you is that rabbits aren't rodents, in case you didn't know. They're very similar. Rabbits are what you call legomorph. They fit in with hair, and rabbits are in the same family as that. Random factoid. So again, I'm just lightly kind of going over the lines again and again and bringing in sort of a darker tone to the line art. I find that gives me slightly more control. But if you want to do, for example, I can show you now, I will do one long line. But I'm still pressing quite lightly. And when I'm, you know, want to thicken something up, I'll probably just sketch in a few extra layers here. Not worried too much about it not being perfect, because after all, you're just creating something and you're enjoying I'm enjoying the process. And any line can be adjusted. If you don't like it, you can either erase it if that's your choice, or for example, maybe thicken it. If I didn't like a line, it was too thin, I can just add a few extra layers, and as I'm adding the extra layers, I'm thickening it, I'm moving that line at the same time. So the capybara in the reference I showed you has got quite a lot of fur around the end here. So I'm just going to make this line pretty jagged. I'm not even going to give it a full line. I'm just going to give, so you can see there's spaces between these perpendicular lines. And that makes the leg look a bit more sort of furry, fluffy. I'm just going to bring that down like so. I'm going to go back to the front of the animal before I do the legs. And again, throw in these perpendicular lines. Make the animal look all hairy. Same for the chest. Like so. I'm going to go over the leg here because the leg has got much sort of shorter hair. And it has this kind of illusion that there's coarser hair going over the top. And that the legs are darker because of it. So I'm just going to leave the legs for now. And throw in this kind of coarser hair here. Do the same for the back leg. Like so. And I'm going to draw in the legs. Paying attention to the curved front of the leg. That's where the muscles are. And the rear of the leg is a little bit straighter. Bringing this kind of palm area here. Bring them down to kind of the base of the hand, which is about here. And then draw out the toes. Yeah. Pressing quite lightly, but just going over the same area a few times and refining it as I go. And there you've got a front leg. Just going to do the same for the next leg. So more curved around the front here. Straight on the back. This rear palm. That curve comes down to the towards the toes. Another curve for the back of the fingers, the back of the toes. Extend my pencil. Bringing out those triangular shapes. And those toenails, like so. Gonna do the rear legs. So I'm just going to bring in the curve here. So the knee falls roughly here. Bring in that curve towards the ankle. Again, not pressing very hard, just kind of going over the same area a few times to darken that line. And the same for the back of the leg here. Bringing down the front of the foot. And then the back of the foot. And then extending out those toes. Those toenails like so. And do the hind, or the rear far leg, the far end leg. Far side rather, sorry. Bringing in these lines, refining them. Just extending that down. We can't see many of the toes on this side, so I'm just going to leave it at that. So that's how you've got your line art of your capybara. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start throwing in some shade and shading, and then we'll do a little bit of a light background so that you can kind of refine this drawing and finish him off. So I'm just going to block in some of the shadowy areas. Now, like I said before, there's not much in the way of shadowy areas on the capybara apart from maybe the belly and the kind of rear muscles. And that's mainly because they're just so solid, they're so round. So we can't really see too much, especially on this reference photo. But I'll show you where I would put some shading just for kind of visual interest of the drawing. So I'm going to bring in, the muzzle's quite a bit darker, so I'm just going to bring in a curved shape here. sketch in a few lines and round off those, the beginning of the lips. Just going to throw in some shades. So I'm just going to do some regular cross hatching. And if your coloured pencil is anything like mine, you should be able to do a bit of blending. So what I tend to do is I just get my fingertip and I just lightly smudge that pencil and make that shading a little bit smoother. Bring in the cheek. It's in a little rectangle there. Add a bit of shading. Do a bit around the top of the eye. And then extend this line here for the side of the face. Like so. Again, can do a bit of shading, bring in that light blue, soft blue line. Kind of blends out, whereas you're going, you're blending out those construction lines. So they kind of fade away into the back of the illustration. Like so. Nice blue pencil, nice blue finger, but a really nice blue shading. I'm going to throw in, there's a bit of shadow down below the chin. So I'm going to just draw around the area that I want to shade. Paying attention to there's layers of fur here by just doing a few of these kind of vertical lines. Then throwing in some cross hatching. Going, keeping everything in the same direction as best as I can. If it's not quite dark enough, I can just go over again. Add a bit more layer, a few more layers rather. Again, I'm just going to smudge that down. I might add a few more darker lines here, just to add a bit more shade. Then you got the front leg. Adding some cross hatching in. And then smudging it out. Do the same for the belly. A little bit darker here. This line, I'm not being precise with it, I'm just kind of letting it go where it wants to go. Throwing in a bit of extra shadow. Smudging him out. I can see where that back end muscle is. I'm just going to draw him in. Like so. Kind of oval shape here. Throwing in some shaded pencil, smudging it out, just to make it a little bit softer. I'm just going to do the front of the leg here as well. There's a slight pocket of squishiness, which kind of leads to a bit of shadow here, just like so. And I'm going to add some around where the shoulder blade falls. Again, this is my kind of own intuition now. I'm using the reference slightly, but not too much. I'm just kind of going off what feels right. This will come with time if you're new to doing this kind of thing. We're lightly just smudging things in, making that shading nice and soft. Now we can go into the darker parts of the leg. The legs are much darker than the rest of the body, so that's quite nice. You can just fill in that space. I tend to fill in the whole thing. Quite dark, and then if I need to darken it any more, I can. Like so. You can add a bit more shadow here, block it out, add another layer of pencil. You've got the same on the front leg. And nice light shading. Gonna block out a little bit more of darker shade here. Might even add a bit more shadow on the front side of the leg here. Like so. Then on to the back legs. Again, this is the same tone as the front legs. Bring in all of that shading. I'll blend this out slightly. I'm paying attention to the ankle bone here, adding a bit of shadow because of it. Maybe adding a bit more shadow towards the front where there's the knuckles. And do the same for the back leg. What I'm going to do, because they're because they are further apart, but they look in the drawing a little bit too close together, I'm just going to add a bit of a shadow from where the kind of back end of the animal covers. Adding a bit of shadow down here, like so. So we have our capybara. Now it's up to you if you want to darken it some more, throw in some more cross-hatching, blocking out any more shapes that you like to see. Maybe sketching in some fur by doing these kind of light, sketchy lines. Apologies for my phone going off. Like so. So I'm just kind of sketching in a few of these random lines, and they just make that fur seem coarse and furry. So now I've got my capybara sketched. I'm going to add in a bit of extra kind of scenery so that it looks a little bit more kind of like a finished illustration. So I'm going to zoom out and show you what I do there. So here we have our little capybara sketch. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a very simple background just to make him stand out a little bit more. So I thought it'd be nice to add some maybe bushes and hedgerows. You might just be walking past them. So I'm just going to sketch out the floor first, doing a very light line just up and ever so slightly past his feet. I'm going to give perhaps the idea that there's grass here, so I'm just going to throw up some, again, kind of flicky C shapes. Going to make it look like that there's some grass here that he's walking past. I just add as well like a little shadow, so I'm just going to draw like a long oval to encompass where he stood. Do some light sketching, shading in, giving him a very light shadow, like so. A bit of a smudge, like so. So now I'm going to draw the sort of hedgerows. I'm just going to block out the shape of the leaves. We'll do something that's slightly closer at first. So I'm just going to do these kind of loose leaf shape. So they're kind of like C shapes, very sharp C shapes, perhaps slightly longer, varying the sizes. Come out the back end as well. Maybe doing like a 3 shape would be quite good as well, like so. So I've placed a kind of area where I'm going to fill it in. What I like to do, and this is a personal preference, I like to leave quite a white border around the animal so he kind of stands out a little bit. So I'm just going to draw a line giving about 2 millimeters distance from the edge of the sketch of the animal, like so. Doing the same for under here. Yeah, like I said, just giving a bit of a gap between the animal and where the shading of the background is going to be, like so. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start filling in these leaves. So I'm going to start from the tip, shade it in there, bring it down, and lighten that pencil as I go. So towards the end, so pressing slightly heavier towards the tip of the leaf, and lifting up slightly as I come back towards the base of the leaf. You can even do this cross-hatching, so slightly heavier there, lighter towards the back. And that just gives a nice little shadow, or a nice little gradient. Do the same here. Just going back over the tip, and lightening as I get towards the base of the leaf. Same on this side. Darker at the tip, and then lighter towards the base of the leaf. And that's just adding a little bit of contrast and some shading in a nice kind of gradual shadowy type style. And I'm going to start filling in the rest of this space, and I'm just going to do these light cross-hatching lines, and every so often I'm going to change direction. And I think that just adds a little bit of interest to the shadow, so it's not all one line or one kind of shape or one kind of direction. And again, that's just kind of personal preference. This isn't something you have to do. You can stick to just the regular kind of constant flow of the line, or you can do the cross hatching like this. So whatever you like. Just kind of filling in this space with the cross hatching and changing direction. That basically just makes it nice and pretty, quite aesthetically pleasing. You can go as slow or as quick as you like. And filling the space in as best as you prefer. You don't have to do it this way. This is just one of my favourite ways of filling in. Adding a bit of texture at the same time. And texture makes texture can really make a illustration really pop and stand out, because it gives your eyes something to look at and something to enjoy. It's quite therapeutic in a way. And then, for example, if you like this area but you want it to be a bit darker, you just do the cross hatching again, adding a few layers, pressing slightly harder. Just play with it. Do the same down here. Adding a bit of scenery to your sketch. And doing some therapy and mindfulness at the same time. What more could you want? And just a little bit back here. Not masses. But there, very simple background. Nothing too elaborate, nothing too extreme. And you have this very sweet little capybara sketch done in blue pencil. How cute is that? Lovely. Awesome. So thank you very much for attending this tutorial. I can't wait to see you for the next one. And as always, if you have any ideas, let me know in the comments, and I'll try and make some tutorials that you find interesting. But I hope you've enjoyed this one, and I'll see you again for the next one. Bye guys.